to be mediocre, but we have the opportunity to play like gods for the next half of football. But we can't be afraid to lose. There's no room for fear in this game.
This is the New Hampshire High School Football Show.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
You blitz all night! If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm going to take every last one of you out.
The New Hampshire High School Football Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
You got heart, charisma, and a lot of skill.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier and Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
Clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose.
Let's go play some football. Let's go.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the New Hampshire High School Football Show. It is the 1st of November and it's playoff time, just about. We've got some games coming up today that will still decide playoff fates of some teams. But I'll tell you what an exciting night of football last night. For me in particular, down in Salem for that huge Londonderry-Salem football game. And the finish, you won't believe it. You're going to want to see the video. We'll have it posted up on nhsportspage.com.
Should be up in about 10-15 minutes.
And I'll tell you what, you want to watch this video because the ending of this game is unbelievable.
I wasn't there last night. I'll tell people listening, it was heartbreaking to see those Salem kids. They just looked around like, what just happened?
There's Dave Haley from nhsportspage.com. I'm Pete Terrier. We bring you the show on the radio live Saturday mornings during the New Hampshire High School football season between 8 and 9 a.m. We do it on two stations as well. News Radio 610 in and around Manchester, and on the Seacoast, we got 96.7 FM. Our producer, Jeremy Mahaney, in the house. I just saw Jeff Chittister leave after doing his show. Jen Wells was in the house. We got John Kesty from nhsportspage.com. I'm trying to keep my two little boys out of the studio who are having YouTube video problems, but we got a lot of football
The Terrier
to talk
boys
about.
are running amok in the hallway at WGIR.
Please, will the flu clinics at Elliott Hospital be over soon? So my wife, who basically organizes flu shots for 5,000 hospital employees in Manchester, Elliott, and all their volunteers, she does this during the month of October, and she had one last clinic today. She's like, you got to take the boys to work.
You mean they're not going to sit here like Allison and just watch a movie and never say a peep?
No. When you multiply the child factor by two, it changes things.
I think it's boys still.
Well, let's get down the scoreboard because we talked a little bit about the Londonderry-Salem game, and we'll talk a lot about it, and we'll have the head coach of Jimmy Lowe's on. He's going to join us at 8:35 this morning. A little bit of controversy brewing around him and the Londonderry team as they get ready for Pinkerton next week. But the scoreboard, there was a bunch of games around the state, a lot of them with playoff implications. Our scoreboard, as always, brought to you by our friends at the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission, the Division of Enforcement, that Buyers Beware campaign. Yes, even if you're a member of the Salem football community and you're not going to the playoffs, A, and B, you got beat on probably one of the flukiest, weirdest endings ever. You got to go back to Thanksgiving Day. I don't know what year it was, but it was in Dallas. It was a sleet type of snowy, rainy game. And Leon Lett messed up on a blocked field goal at the end of the game, and Miami ended up winning the game because of his screw-up. I'm not saying Salem screwed up or anybody specifically on Salem, but it reminded me of that as that thing was unfolding last night, and we'll talk about it. So even if you got screwed by that type of play, whether it was officials not necessarily handling things properly or things just didn't break your way, don't go around and try and get over it with a keg around a campfire on a cold night in Salem. It's just not the way to go about things. And, oh, by the way, it's against the law. Here's the scoreboard with Dave Haley.
Londonderry is in a game that Pete and the great John Kesty covered last night. We'll have, like Pete said, all the highlights, interviews. I just watched the end of it in Pete's office. Unbelievable. So that should be up on the site in about the next 15, 20 minutes. Londonderry 23, Salem 21. Londonderry goes for a field goal to win the game, gets it blocked. One of their linemen catches it. Salem thinks they've won the game, but the kick took a place on third down. So Londonderry smartly kept their kicking team, the special teams unit, on the field, lined up to kick it again. Salem thought they had the ball. They had run out there. They thought offensively they were going to have it. Londonderry re-kicks and drills the field goal from,
28, 29 yards.
29 yards, and wins the game. Salem in utter shock, and they flooded the field from Londonderry. So a game we talked about all season long, lived up to the hype. So certainly we're going to get more into that later. Timberlane 28-14 over Alvern. I don't have the standings in front of me. So is Alvern in?
They're in.
Alvern's in. Boy, not on the.
And they're going on the road to do it.
Yeah,
Because
Bishop Girton beat Pete Terrier's alma mater 19-8. Travis Cody, Travis Cody I think gets more grief than he deserves. I think he does a real nice job. He's had a lot of injuries. Well, he's in the playoffs. He's a division champion or conference champion over there. BG wins it. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. BG's in 19-8. Bedford finishes undefeated, kind of like the quiet undefeated team in the state of New Hampshire, 34-14 over Central. That's a good win. Central came in there, winners of 3 in a row, and Bedford thumped them last night to finish the season. Portsmouth with a 34-7 win over Dover. They easily win that game, and they're going to Exeter next week, which would be a huge playoff game, so we'll get into all that. Pinkerton finishes undefeated, not surprisingly.
Hey, one thing, though, as we were just talking to Jeff Chittister, a proud Portsmouth alum.
Yes.
So he wanted to make it known that he is a former Clipper himself. So congrats to you, Jeff Chittister.
Yeah, they're going to Exeter next week. It should be a lot of fun. I'm sure. I have a feeling I'll be there. Pinkerton, as I said, finishes undefeated 37-0 over Merrimack. Exeter beats Concord. Exeter 35 to Concord 17. Don't sleep on Exeter. They're the team, I think, that no one really wants to play. I mean, that's a dangerous team. Bill Ball, a Hall of Fame, terrific coach, has them playing very well. So Exeter beats Concord 35-17. So now Memorial goes to Goffstown today with fate in their own hands. If Memorial wins that game, they're in the playoffs. They lose, then Concord is in. Keene with a 13-10 win over Nashua North. And this was a funny game. I talked to McIsaac on the way over here. Winnicunnet with a 21-14 win over Spalding. Spalding drove at the end of this game and had the ball, tried to punch it in from the 2. They did. They called the Bush push play.
Bush push?
Yeah,
the thing that got the Patriots last year against the Jets?
No, well, that was on a field goal, but the Bush push play, and I was sadly in South Bend, Indiana, in the stadium when it happened, but when Reggie Bush was pushed by Matt Leinart Reggie Bush pushed Matt Leinart into the end zone from behind
gotcha.
to win the game. So they called that on Spalding. Then the officials couldn't figure out if it's a loss of down. It's a 10-yard penalty, and they couldn't figure out if they lose a down or not. Ugh. So they ended up getting like 5 different plays at the end of the game. The Winnicunnet parents were apparently about to storm the field, but they knocked away a pass at the end, and Winnicunnet holds on for a 21-14 win over Spalding. Lebanon with a 60-27 win over Conval. Lebanon is not in the playoffs. That is because Kearsarge...
Oh, man.
Riley Antell broke a huge run late in that game, 60-something yards, right up the middle for a huge touchdown, put Laconia down by 2 scores. Matt Swarmstead drove Laconia down in under a minute, scored, got the 2-point conversion, made it a 3-point game, 33-30. Laconia onside kicked in the last minute. Kearsarge recovered, and Kearsarge, who a team that we have not spoken about all year, is going to the playoffs, absolutely positively earned their way in, beat Lebanon badly last week, went to Laconia, and it shocked you, right? You're looking at me like, I can't believe Kearsarge beat Laconia. They did. So Kearsarge is in. They deserve it. They're the right team, and they're going to Kennett next week. Kennett with a 38-7 win over Kingswood. They got a big early, and Kennett finishes undefeated in that division. Souhegan with a 14-9 win over Pelham. I got a lot of games wrong this week.
Yeah, and I got a lot of games right, by the way, except for that Kearsarge-Laconia game. Yeah. I think you picked Kearsarge.
Well, Joe Marshallina, I think. Did we have in our staff picks? But I picked Pelham to win that game. Souhegan with a 14-9 win over Pelham. Milford with a 43-7 win over Manchester West. So Milford has given themselves an opportunity. I'm not sure how they're going to go. If it's by the tiebreaker head-to-head, Trinity should already be in, even if they lose today. Trinity plays St. Thomas today. That game's being played at Exeter because of the field.
Oh, okay.
So that's going to be on the turf at Exeter. I don't know if you did you see WMUR News this morning?
No.
Interest story. There was a runaway freight train that went through Claremont, New Hampshire last night.
Oh, my.
Yeah, to the tune of Guilford 47, Stevens 20. Boom. The Golden Eagles, a team nobody, Pinkerton. Coach O'Reilly called me last week, said, I want no part of Guilford. I said, Coach O'Reilly, they're in Division III. Don't have to worry about it. He said, thank God for that, Dave. It was nice of him to call. 47-20, Guilford rolls. We're headed into the playoffs next week, and I'll be at one of their games in the next 2 weeks. We're going to cover it. We're bringing the crew. Campbell, who's playing very, very well. Campbell with a 42-14 win over Raymond. Listen to this score.
Yeah.
Bishop Brady, 60. Winnisquam, 40.
Holy cow.
And they said that the guy doing the scoreboard passed out and fainted in the third quarter. They had to get somebody else to come in and take care of it because he was so busy putting all these. It's a joke, Pete.
Yeah.
And there was no freight train in Claremont, too, just to make sure you know that was a joke.
You had me going for
Yeah,
a
there we
few.
go. 60-40. I haven't seen it in the paper yet. I had to get it because I actually have to drive an hour to get here. I think Brendan Johnson probably threw for 500 yards and threw 7 touchdown passes, but we'll check on that. I'm sure Christian Serrano played well for Winnisquam. I can assume these things. And the final score, Mascoma with a 46-44 win over Fall Mountain. Division III football, folks.
Yeah, no defense, lots of offense. And,
Get around the corner and go.
and exciting football, and congratulations to your Golden Eagles, Dave.
Thank you very much.
All right, one other note, and I don't know what's going on with this, but we'll find out. There's some stuff that went out on Twitter last night. Roger Brown had it. It was a little bit of attention to it in the Union Leader this morning in the paper on a story written by Roger. Roger was at the game last night as I was, Londonderry and Salem. And there's word that Jimmy Lozon, the head coach of Londonderry, will not even be able to coach in the game against Pinkerton next week because his team received a couple of unsportsmanlike penalties, the personal foul types. And I guess there's a rule that if you get a couple in a game, then you're suspended. Or I don't know the rule.
They got him last night?
Last night, one of the penalties occurred in the first half, and then another penalty was assessed on the craziness at the end with the blocked field goal and the seeming win by Salem, and then all of a sudden Londonderry ends up winning on a made field goal on their second attempt. There was a lot of chaos, and there were flags. And ultimately what happened was Londonderry ended up kicking off from the 25 because there was an unsportsmanlike penalty whistled against the team, I guess, for leaving the sidelines. But both teams were off the sidelines. I mean, to me, that's where the officials had some issues dealing with this thing.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to Coach Lozon in about 20 minutes or so from now. We'll find out what he knows, if he knows anything.
Oh, that would be a shame.
What a game. There are some games today. You mentioned the Memorial Goffstown game. Looks like me and the Terrier boys have something to do this afternoon as we'll head out.
You got to run them, Pete. Get them tired.
We'll run them out to the Goffstown high school football field, and we'll see what happens between Memorial and Goffstown this afternoon. Memorial wins. They're in. It's about pride for Goffstown. I think it's still going to be a real tough game for Manchester Memorial, even though Goffstown doesn't have a chance to make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
The other one with playoff implications, you were talking about the Trinity St. Thomas game. You said at Exeter. That's at 1:30. Both of those games I just talked about.
That game's been moved to 3 o'clock.
All right, 3 o'clock start for that one. The Memorial Goffstown goes at 1:30. You got Merrimack Valley at Pembroke at 1:30. You got that's an old school basketball.
Yeah, that's a rivalry game.
Drapo and Alosa. You got Hanover at Plymouth at 1:30. Monadnock at Wyndham. Wyndham looking for the perfect season. They will get it. John Stark at Sanborn. And then the D3 games of note, Somersworth Bow.
Big game.
1:30 game. If I could be at 2 places at one time, actually, I'd like to be in 3 places at one time today. I'd like to be at Exeter for the Trinity St. Thomas game. I'd like to be in Goffstown for the Memorial Goffstown game. And I'd like to be at Bow for that Somersworth Bow game. Obviously, it's not going to happen. 2 other games to talk about. Farmington Newt at Epping Newmarket, the Hyphen Bowl. And then you got Newfound at Newport, the New Bowl.
Right, and gambling is illegal and immoral, so I would never do it. But let's just say that maybe possibly Justin McIsaac and I friendly wagered that Elijah DeJoy will not get 50 yards rushing in the first half against Bow.
That's the friendly gentleman's bet.
Friendly gentleman's bet because that Bow defense has not let anybody go for 50 yards all season long, and we.
Well, the other day you were saying like he won't get 75 in the game. Now it's 50 in the half.
Yeah, because I tried to say with McIsaac, he I was trying to say, like, the JV kids get in late if they happen to blow out Summersworth, which they might. I don't know. They've blown out everybody all season long. That, I didn't want them breaking off a run against the third string and then I lose the bet. So this is the only way that he and I could agree on it because, McIsaac and I, we talk for 30 seconds and we start yelling at each other incoherently. Right. So that is the gentleman's bet today, 50 yards. So Tim O'Sullivan, I'm sure, will be there from the monitor. I think I have Tim's number, so I'm going to have to be in contact with him.
Yeah, whose stats are you going with? Because they don't really keep official stats at these games.
Tim O'Sullivan, I trust him.
All right, Tim, you got a lot of responsibility today. In addition to writing a story about a big game, you got to keep track of these guys' bets. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about the Londonderry-Salem game. I don't know where to start with this thing. You should have seen me at the beginning of the post-game interview with the Londonderry players. It was, when games get crazy like that in the end, there's so many different things happening, you kind of forget how it went down. And it was just unbelievable.
The film's great.
You're going to watch the film on the website.
Great job by John Kesty.
I believe it might be up on the website now, nhsportspage.com. Check it out.
Yep.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about it, try and sort it out on the New Hampshire High School Football Show, News Radio 610 and 96.7.
These guys know their high school football. It's the New Hampshire High School Football Show with Pete Terrier and Dave Haley.
Well, we may know our high school football, but we certainly did not know what kind of finish we were going to get last night down at Grant Field in Salem at the end of that Salem-Londonderry game. I mean, the stakes were high to begin with, Dave. It was a winner moving on, loser going home, despite the fact that the loser was 7-2, and despite the fact that two teams from another conference in the same division would make the playoffs at under 500, 4-5. And those two teams, Bishop Girton and Bishop Girton and Alvern, going in opposite directions. BG went from 1-5 to 4-5, winning their final three to get in. They're going to host Alvern in the playoffs, and Alvern dropped like a stone after looking really good and losing last night to Timberlane 28-14. They're going to have to go on the road to BG to play the playoff game next week. But Salem beat both BG and Alvern comfortably during the season.
And Londonderry, who of course is in, crushed them both as well. We covered the BG Londonderry opener, remember, and Londonderry crushed them. So
right, and Salem loses on a fluke field goal at the end of the game against Londonderry. Also, were the only team that was within hailing distance of Pinkerton this year. They lost 14-7, and they got stopped on the 1-yard line in the final seconds. So they almost tied Pinkerton, almost beat them. They're not going to the playoffs. And then to have it end the way it did for Salem last night, that's a double gut punch. Remember last week we were talking about Trinity might get squeezed out of the Turkey Bowl and the playoffs on formalities and point ratings and rating systems? Well, this is just as bad for Salem, if not worse.
It's very simple. You take the four conferences, your conference winner, so BG would be in anyway, but you take your four conference winners, they're in, and then everything else is wide open, best record, head-to-head being the tiebreaker. It's really simple. So Salem would be in, Concord would be in, Portsmouth would be in, I believe Memorial would be in, right? And very simple. There's your best team. So Alvern's out, and it's too bad. I wasn't rooting for Londonderry or Salem. I admire both those programs. I met the Londonderry kids. They were great. People at Londonderry are terrific. But I wasn't rooting for either. Honestly, it was heartbreaking for me to watch those Salem kids. Not because Salem lost. It was just the way they lose. It's on film, and we were there, and we got it. So it's terrific. Everybody should be watching that. Pete did an unbelievable job, honestly, calling it. But
by the way,
really
wearing a mullet wig and my USA hockey jersey.
I want to save that surprise for everybody else.
It was Halloween night. I mean, a fitting way to end things on Halloween night. This is how it is after the game when you're doing these games on video, and afterwards you got to go down and do the post game stuff, and you got to select kids to come on camera with you. And I actually had Salem scored a touchdown to go ahead with a minute and a half left or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they did it in awesome fashion. They put a big lineman in the backfield, Sean Nardiff, number 68. He's a junior, big kid. And I was thinking, maybe that's a jumbo package, and he's going to block for Johnny Bartos, the fullback, or Charles Sabanda, the tailback. No, they handed him the football, and he ran it in. He ran it, I think, for a first down on one play. And then on the next play, they gave it to him again, and he scored a short touchdown. So I actually circled on the Salem roster the 4 players that I wanted to talk to.
Oh, no.
I wanted to talk to Saratani, the quarterback. I wanted to talk to Austin Holmesy, one of the captains of the team. I wanted to talk to Johnny Bartos, the fullback who had a big game. And then I was going to talk to Sean Nardiff, number 68, who scored the game-winning touchdown, or at least what I thought was going to be. And then just like that, I'm scrambling at the end of the game figuring, well, who the heck am I going to get to talk to on Londonderry? Because I already had the plan mapped out to talk to Salem as going to the playoffs.
Did you see the video? It was on it was Deadspin or one of those, the kid this week that was running, the quarterback who was running out the clock. And it was 4th down. It was it was a playing game. I think it was like Utah, I think it was. It was a high school game. The kid runs backwards, waits till the clock goes to 0. But it's not like basketball. When it goes to 0, the game's over. So he just kind of stands there with the ball, and the team runs up to him, knocks it out of his hands. He fumbles, and he's looking around like, what are you doing? They pick it up, and then he realizes it. He chases them. They score and win the game. Situational football.
Yeah.
And obviously the Salem coaches, I'm going to assume they absolutely knew, it's 4th down now, but the kids didn't understand it because if you watch the field goal, they blocked the first one, but they never even got an opportunity to block the second one because they thought they were getting the ball back. They thought the game was over. They were celebrating.
They didn't even have the whole special teams defense,
No, it's
the field goal
chaotic.
block team on the field, and credit Londonderry. And I told Coach Lozon, you'll see it when I interviewed him after the game.
Yeah.
I said, you just won yourself Coach of the Year for getting your stuff together and getting your team to execute that. This is high school football, Dave, all right? You see these fire drills at the end of pro games all the time, and it usually ends badly.
That's why Belichick's the best coach in the NFL, right? The Patriots never screw up those plays, right?
Right. They make them, and they practice them, and then they execute them on the field, and that's what Londonderry did.
Yep.
Their
kids knew it. You watch
knew.
the film, you can see the film. They were ready. They were like, okay, we're doing this again. Salem had no idea.
They weren't ready. They weren't ready, and there's controversy because should the clock have stopped? Should the officials have stopped the clock? There wasn't a change of possession because Londonderry recovered it, but with all that chaos and everybody on the field and the celebrations going on, you had to stop the clock. I mean, Rob Pike, I read a quote from him in the Union Leader and Roger Brown's story. He was like, hey, I assume that they were going to stop the clock. They probably should have, or not. I would assume that the clock would run out because they got the football. The clock should have kept running, and they shouldn't have had enough time to set up. But they did. They went out. They executed it. They got lined up. They were composed. There was no flags, and they made the kick.
Because Salem ran, what Pete's describing is, because Salem, if they'd stayed in place, the clock would have kept running if they knew that there was still another down to be played, but they didn't, so they sort of ran off the field celebrating, and that's why they stopped the clock, because it would have been offsides.
It was a crazy ending.
Man.
You got to check out the video.
Roger sent a tweet out last night. He said something like, "This is one of the craziest endings I've ever seen in 20 years of covering it."
It certainly was. We're not done talking about it. We'll take a time out. We got Jimmy Lozon, the head coach of the victorious Londonderry Lancers. Can't wait to hear what he says, and we'll find out what the deal is on this suspension or possible suspension. To me, it's ridiculous.
It better not be.
It's kind of like one of those leaving the bench ejections in the NBA.
Yeah.
You know, those are ridiculous. I think we've learned that. I'm not sure what's going on. We'll hear it from the horse's mouth. We'll talk to Coach Lozon from Londonderry when we return. The New Hampshire High School Football Show, News Radio 610 and
Coverage
96.7.
of New Hampshire High School football. The New Hampshire High School Football Show on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
Joining us on the phone lines right now, a guy who I'm not sure if he got a whole lot of sleep last night, but he's got time to sleep when the season is over. The head coach of the Londonderry Lancers, Jimmy Lozon, joins us on the New Hampshire High School Football Show. Coach Lozon, good morning to you. Are you still kind of riding that emotional high right now?
Yeah, I mean, sorry if I skip in and out. My voice is completely gone at this point. So.
Well, I just want to once again say that this was a very much hyped up game. We were looking at this, me and Dave Haley here, since week one, we were looking at that Londonderry Salem regular season finale, Halloween night in Salem, thinking, all right, you got Pinkerton. They're probably a shoe-in for the playoffs. Who's that other team in your conference to get in? And we looked at that game and said, boom, there it is. And then as the season played out and both your teams kind of continued on that collision course, and then for once, a game like that, I don't see Denver, New England tomorrow living up to the hype that this one lived up to last night. But 23-21, your team wins it. I'm going to just try and piece this thing together, and then we'll let you comment on it. But basically what happened was Salem takes the lead on a short touchdown run with just over a minute left. You guys get the football back, needing to go pretty much the length of the field to at least get in range for a field goal. The only problem is your field goal kicker tried a couple of kicks earlier in the game, one from, I think, 30 yards, the other from 37. Neither one was really close or looked all that good, instilling a lot of confidence in a coach to call on that kid in a big spot to keep your season alive. Eric Fairweather, your quarterback, throwing the football down the field, moving you methodically into place. You get into place somewhere around the 14-yard line, if I remember correctly. You got no timeouts left at this point. You decide to send the field goal team out there for a 29-yard attempt with, 14 seconds left, whatever it was, on third down. Take it from there, Coach. Why did you do that? And it ended up working out, but please take it from there.
I was worried that we might have a fumbled snap. That was what was on my mind. I mean, we had talked about it way back at the beginning of the year. I forget before which game, and we talked about both defensively in that situation. You can advance the kick if you recover it, and then if it was blocked and we were to kick on third down. But I mean, I don't want to say that. I don't know if the kids remembered that or whatnot. We just have two pretty smart kids, and Nick, Donnelly, and Eric, who were trying to get everyone back and lined up. So anyways, I was thinking, my thought process was, if we had, I don't know if you watched Matt Frieda snap the ball, our long snapper, earlier in the game on a punt, it was a little short, so that scared me a little bit, and I was thinking, if we have a bad snap, we'll get a second shot at it. So I went out there, told them that at the timeout after first down. We ran a quarterback wedge on third down to try to get a couple more yards and to stay straight. We wanted to, kick it straight on. Nick's a good kicker. One thing I've noticed is he's not great from hashes, but he's very good straight on. Both kicks earlier in the game were from the hash, so that I figured he could still hit one straight on. After he missed the second one, he was really down on himself. I grabbed him and I told him, hey, you got to forget about it. You might have to kick a game winner. Never did I think it was really going to come down to that, though. But it was a great bunch of plays all together, and Mike Ryan getting out of bounds on that run. The usual Mike Ryan tries to push that into the end zone because he's such a good athlete. We've dealt with that a couple times this season where clock's been against us at the end of the half, and Mike's tried to score the touchdown instead of running out of bounds. So very heads up on his part. And then, I went out there to the huddle, and I said, all right, we're going to do this, and we're going to try to kick it on third down just in case we have a bad snap. We can try it again. And then a couple coaches were like, well, no, we should spike it and save the clock. So I was like, all right, do we want to spike it? And I said, no. Go with it on third down. Go with it on third down just in case. So ended up paying off.
Now they blocked the kick, and you guys recover. When you recovered it, the clock stopped. There was wild celebration from Salem. I'm on video. Watch the video when you get on the website, nhsportspage.com, and at the end, I'm like, Salem's going to win this football game. You were probably thinking it. They were definitely thinking it. The referees immediately stopped the clock with 8.4 seconds left, giving you guys an opportunity. At that point, you sent your field goal team back out there. Salem didn't even really have the defense in place to defend that, maybe get another block, whatever. And you guys just methodically went about it, got set. You didn't panic. You snap the ball. The snap is down. The kick is up. It's good. And then there's, I think, 1.5 seconds left. Now you're up by 2, and you basically snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. Why did they stop the clock in that situation? There was some Salem people talking about it after the game, like that should not have happened. Salem coach Rob Pike was like, I thought the clock would have just run out, But because you guys get the football back after the block and all the craziness on the field, the officials had no choice but to stop the clock, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess looking back, if they don't run off the field, or if they don't run, and if guys on the sideline don't run on the field, then they probably just let it run out, because it just goes from third down to fourth down. But I'm glad our guys kept their composure and lined it back up. They were well aware of the situation. Really glad the clock stopped. I don't know, what, because of the chaos. I mean, I guess you're right. They probably didn't have a choice. I had no voice at that point. I was screaming to line it back up, but no one could hear me. My assistant coaches were too, and then we practiced that little fire drill that you guys were talking about. I know I told you this last night. I mean, randomly all week I'd just put the ball down. I'd say field goal, and I'd start counting down from 10, and they would just run from whatever drill we were doing, and they'd just run right there and set the ball, and boom, we'd snap it and kick it. With 1 second left, and we'd hit it, and everyone would go crazy. And we must have done that probably, I don't know, at least half a dozen times this week, and it ended up paying off.
It's interesting, Coach. The last time you and I spoke was on the field after you guys beat Bishop Girton in the opener. We had you and the kids on video, and you made a point. Dennis Bishop ran back a kick that night, and
yeah,
on a kickoff, and you made a point of saying we've been working on special teams. It's been an emphasis all season or all preseason, and you said we've really made it an emphasis, special teams. And Pete and I, before we came on, talking situational football. And if you watch, I give your kids a lot of credit. Certainly you as a coaching staff preparing them for this, but your kids a lot of credit, because as the Salem kids are kind of running around, they could have kind of looked around too and been like, what are we doing? Is the clock going to run? Is it over? Did we win? Did we lose? But they didn't. They just kind of got right back in it, snapped it again. And I don't even know if I have a question to this, but the kicker looked comfortable, right? You know what I mean? He sort of like, it was so quick that he didn't have time to think about missing it. He just got up and swung his foot and went in.
The second chance, I knew he was going to make it. I knew it, because there's, you don't have time to think about it. You're just like, line it up, here we go, and he just focused and kicks it through. I was worried they were going to call a timeout there and ice him, and then that's what, again, would probably settled in, and then he would have said, this is a big moment, this and that. So I was just line it up. I was waiting for them to call a timeout. They didn't, and we lined it up. But at the same time, I understand not calling a timeout because we're rushed. You don't think maybe we're going to get it off, or we're gonna something bad's going to happen. So I mean, you can play it both ways. That was my thought process. So
yeah. So
and I agree with you on the special teams, man. We've done every game. Right now, we consider ourselves 9-0 on special teams. They did have a nice kick return early in the game, and so we'll fix that. But other than that, I thought our special teams played pretty well every game. We spent a lot of time preparing for special teams, even just in our meetings, and we've done a great job. Double sessions, we spent more than the usual teams probably do on special teams. Our special teams coach has done a great job. Gets a good scouting report, and we try to find little things that we can expose. But they've done a great job all year.
So moving on to Pinkerton next week, obviously your short drive, arch rival, game we covered earlier. And what is your thought process? And Pete mentioned earlier there are a couple of penalties for kids running on the field. Are you going to be affected in any way, or is there any situation where you may have a penalty against you?
There's reports out there that you might be suspended for that game, and maybe even some of your players for those infractions, unsportsmanlike penalties, one that occurred in the first half and then one that was in that craziness at the end. What do you know about that?
I don't. So,
is that the first you're hearing of it? I mean, because it was all over Twitter last night, and if you read Roger Brown's story in the Union Leader, it makes mention of that. I don't think it says anything about you potentially being suspended, but Jeremy Levier from NHNotebook.com last night said to me after the game, after me and you had talked, and he said that there could be a possible suspension. I don't know. To me, it's ridiculous, and it's that leaving the bench in an NBA fight type of situation where players are suspended for the next playoff game because they left the bench. I mean, I don't know what the situation is. Do you know anything about that?
I mean, I know they sent me off the field at the end, but
they said you were ejected. You were ejected?
Right. they said that the penalty was on me, but I have no idea how they'll assess it and whatnot, and I guess we'll find out on Monday. Right now, I just got to plan as if I'm coaching against Pinkerton, and we thought the clock ran out there at the end. I was shocked that it still had a second and a half left, and then on the kickoff, they still had a half a second.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I can't answer that question. I'm sorry.
If you are suspended, that is absolute garbage and ridiculous. And because your team got penalized, but Salem didn't get penalized, they were probably on the field. And I'm not, backing you and bashing Salem when I say this, but they were on the field every much as your team was. I mean, they were the team that was celebrating thinking they had won.
Right.
So if anything, why is the penalty not on them?
Common sense has to come into play. You know what I mean?
No, that's a valid point as far as they were on the field as well. Like I said, I'm not sure, and I really can't say anything because I don't want to speak at a turn. I have no idea what will happen with that situation.
So back to so what are your thoughts on Pinkerton and your confidence level getting them again? You moved that football all night long against them, had that huge fumble that got returned 98 yards, but I know you just got done, one huge win, but what are your initial thoughts about facing Pinkerton again?
We're going to start working on it today. We're at their place. Things a little different this time around, a little bit more in the line, but we're at their place. I mean, I think our kids felt a lot of pressure the last time around. We were both 3-0. We were at home, had a pep rally that day. It was kind of I think our guys were a little overhyped, especially on the first drive. We did not execute. I think we were execution-wise, like 2 out of those 3 plays were not even close. I think we had a guy run the wrong way, and it was a crazy night. And the kids were, we had kids just overhyped 3 hours before the game. They need to just keep their cool. This game is, they should enjoy it. Just being in the playoffs right now, having a chance to play their rival team in the first round. We'll go into it with a different mindset this time around, a little more calm, I think. And somebody said to me last night, we kind of were a new team at that point. That fourth game of the season. We've went through a lot now through a full season. We've learned a lot. We've faced a lot of different looks, and we've dealt with a lot of different adversity and different situations. And I just think we've grown up and grown together throughout the season. So I think it'll be a different mindset for sure for us. Pinkerton's a great team, and we have our work cut out for us. They haven't been tested in quite a while. I'd say since that game, right? For the most part, they're very good. There's not much to say. Everyone knows this. So we'll get to work on them, and we'll see where it goes from there.
All right, Coach. Well, look, the best of luck against Pinkerton next week. The best of luck that they will do the right thing in terms of, any potential suspension. Ridiculous situation. Not your fault, certainly. And you best be coaching next week. That's all I can say. Because
I was listening to you guys earlier. Sorry to cut you off. And I really do feel horrible for Salem, because if that was us in that situation, to be left out of the playoffs, to lose like that, 7-2, to really go into that game with only one blemish on the season, that's a very, very good football team, and I definitely think one of the top 3 best football teams is being left out of the state right there, left out of the playoffs. That's a great team. They're extremely well coached. They're great on defense, great on offense. I just feel bad for them, and I think they've done a great job. They have a great program. They have a very good freshman team, really good JV team. They're going to be a good program. They are a good program right now. It stinks to see a team like that lose like that and go and have to miss the playoffs. So, I did not want to give that speech after the game. I feel bad for Coach Pike having to do that, and those players. I know I can imagine how upset they were. So I just wanted them to know that we respect them immensely, and that was a great game. It's a great team.
A stand-up guy, Coach Jimmy Lozon from Londonderry. When you get a chance today, go to the website, nhsportspage.com, relive it. It's quite a sight to see, I can tell you that. Congratulations, Coach. We'll see you in the playoffs.
Alrighty, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, Londonderry's Jimmy Lozon. Quick timeout. We'll come back, wrap up the show. I don't think he could have handled that interview any better.
No, he's fantastic.
It is the New Hampshire High School Football Show, News Radio 610 and
To the
96.7.
best local coverage of New Hampshire high school football on the New Hampshire High School Football Show. Saturday mornings from 8 to 9 on News Radio 610 and 96.7.
You know, sometimes, Dave, you come in here and you do a show and it's over real quick and it's kind of like happens like a blur. This is what this show has been, an absolute blur.
You know what's my favorite part just happened is that your son hadn't said a word to you in the last 3 minutes, and as soon as we went on air, he came right over to start talking to you. As soon as you started talking. I love kids.
And I apologize for having to bring the kids in,
stop.
but the wife had to work this morning at like 5 o'clock in
It's
the morning.
her fault, Pete.
So
It was hilarious. He literally didn't do anything, and then as soon as you started talking on the air, he just came right over and started talking.
Yeah, with
my daughter does the same thing. Like, she waits till I'm on the phone with a coach, and then this is when she needs to talk to me.
And he brings me a pack of Sour Patch Kids. I have no idea where he got them from. Jennifer Wells, if that was you that handed the kid the candy. Not like they didn't get enough candy last night trick-or-treating down in Goffstown for Halloween, but I'll tell you what. This show is flown by. We only got a couple of minutes left.
Great interview.
That was very enjoyable.
He was
Jimmy
great.
Lozon from Londonderry. He's got his act together. I mean, a young kid. It was, I think, 7 years ago when I was covering him quarterbacking Manchester West in a playoff game against Pinkerton. And now 7 years later, he's a head coach of a football team. And he was actually head coach of his high school, West, for a few years, and then went to go, I think, work for St. A's last year, maybe the last 2 years, and came back as a head man in Londonderry, and now he's got his team in the playoffs. Speaking of playoff implications, it's still kind of up in the air around some of the conferences.
Watch out for Trinity today. I'm picking St. Thomas to win that game, but yeah, I think that's what you're getting to. Trinity deserves to be in the playoffs, and watch for them today. I think they're playing very good football right now.
I'm looking at the ratings situation here, and that's how it's coming down. You know, if a team finishes tied. Trinity beat Milford head-to-head 38-13 a couple weeks ago. Milford was victorious last night to close out the regular season, so they're 5-3. If Trinity loses, they'll also be 5-3. And the way it's listed now on the NHIAA website, Trinity has a rating of 10.5714. Milford, whose regular season is done, 9.75. So unless you lose rating points when you lose a game, which I don't think you do, I think you only gain them by winning, and the teams that you beat, whatever their wins are, that helps your rating point goes up. So I think if Trinity loses this game, they're still in no matter what.
They should be in.
They should be.
Yeah, they should be in.
So that would be an injustice,
Be a good game
much
today.
like the injustice of Salem not being in the playoffs, and 4-5 Alvern, and 4-5 Bishop Girton of all teams. Let's talk about the Cardinals, because coming out of the Queen City Jamboree, they blitzed whoever they played in that game. I think 27-0.
They beat Central.
They beat Central 27-0. All right. Then they looked awful. Injury riddled.
Lost Jackson Hausman in the opener.
Now they're starting to play kind of like that team.
Yeah, Kelvin Rivera's back.
That ripped through the Jamboree. That's all the time we have. Great show. Check out the highlights. nhsportspage.com. Londonderry Salem. This is a finish you do not want to miss. For Dave Haley, John Kesty, our producer Jeremy Mahaney. Thanks to Jimmy Lozon, the head coach of the Lancers, for joining us on the program. I am Pete Terrier. Enjoy your November, everybody, and go Pats tomorrow. Kick Peyton's butt.